Hello, everybody. This is Maria Greene here with this wonderful new friend that I have made online. I met Sigrid Eleonora Ariana on Facebook, I think, because we have mutual friends, but I never really realized what a fabulous artist she is until I looked at her art on her Facebook page, and it's just deep, it's wonderful, it's just rich, it really speaks to my heart. So I'm really happy to have you here today, Sigrid. And
thank you.
Since I don't know a lot about you, so can you tell me about yourself and how you were drawn into painting?
Okay, well, I was born in Holland, and right from a very early age, I found myself drawing, and I remember sitting at the kitchen table drawing mainly girls for hours, like girls in like period costume, girls in modern costumes, and it was just girls, girls, girls all the time, and girls' faces and everything. And I think I was thinking about it this morning and wondering how I got to the process, because what happened in my family was that my parents and my dad drew as well. He drew, he would draw my mother or my sisters, or did a wood carving of, you know, my mother's face and things like that. And my mother drew as well, except they only did that as a little hobby sometimes. And so for me, I was sort of introduced to art and drawing from a very early age. And then life went on. I went to school, did art, but at school I was actually, even in art school, I was actually found myself that I was discouraged from, at one particular sensitive time when I was a teenager, I got some criticism from an art teacher, and it sort of caused me not to paint as much or draw as much. So anyway, I'm not used to this interviewing process, but so the story is that after I had children, I was very busy. Obviously, I had 4 children, but I still always tried to create something. But a lot of the time I was lacking in material of what to paint. Like I tried still life, I tried oils, I tried landscape, I tried all these different things, because for some reason I thought that drawing the female form was not serious art. It wasn't real art. And then at one stage, when my children were starting to leave home, I had this compulsion to draw women as goddesses. And I bought all these canvases from a shop that had half-price canvases. I knew that I wanted to paint large and lots of colour, but I thought that I'd have to study all the goddesses archetypes that exist in the world, which is a huge subject, because there's, you know, Indian goddesses, there's Celtic goddesses, there's Buddhist goddesses, and all of that. And I thought I'd have to know the subject really well, and so I didn't do it. The paints and the canvases stayed in my studio, which I had prepared for a couple of years, and then I came across. It was also through Facebook, actually. I mean, we all know that Facebook is sometimes not so good, but in my instance, it's been a really good resource. So I came across a lady who had changed her profile picture, one of my friends, and I was drawn to this painting of a woman's face. And I said to her, "Oh, was that your art?" And she told me, "No, it wasn't. It was a lady in the States, and she had, she said, oh, you might quite like it. And her name is Shiloh Sophia McLeod, and she has this thing called the Cosmic Cowgirl University." So I thought, oh, that sounds pretty wacky, and I'm pretty wacky, so I'll investigate this. And, you know, I found her art, and I found, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, and I found that I could get this DVD and do one of her instructional videos on how to do a process called intentional creativity to actually paint your own goddess, like your own self as a goddess. And it was about sparking your creative juices and finding your own inspiration and all of that. So I sent away for it, and I'm sort of on the edge of my seat waiting and waiting for the video arrived. And when it did, finally, I sort of launched myself, got my paints out, got my canvas out. And before I knew it, I'd created about 4 paintings using this method. And they're all exploring myself. And the first one was actually about grace, because, and what I must say, it's about a healing journey in a way. It's about a self-exploration, because there was a lot of things in my life that I wasn't altogether too happy about. And did I really want to be where I was? And through that process, it led me on a journey to change my circumstances, to reflect more about who I was and where I wanted to be. So I can talk more about that later.
Well, that's a wonderful story on how everything evolves from the feminine principle and how we can heal through art. But, so can you tell me a little something about your process as you paint, your painting process?
Okay, well, first of all, that was what one of my blockages were when I was sort of going it alone. Even if I went to like the local art group or whatever, you know, it's usually that you painted from real life. And I actually personally have a very active imagination and always have had. So that wasn't satisfying that need, my own creativity. It was about like looking at a tree or looking at, or for, in this instance, it was some brown onions in a bag tumbling out, and it's about representing the color properly and doing all that. And although what do you call it, a man who'd set up this exercise for me to help me to paint more, he said, because he did a painting alongside me, and his was very true to life, whereas mine was a bit more colourful. But he said, I said, oh, maybe I should go to art school. And he said, no. He said, you don't need to. He said, you've already got what most people want. There's life in your painting. There's a lot of movement. He said, the only thing you might need is to learn a bit more about mix and colour. But he said, if you go to art school, they'll breed that out of you.
Yeah.
So that was encouraging. And so the process that intentional creativity is that you have a blank canvas, and it's like the white page. What are you going to put on it? Like, what's your story? And so you start with an inquiry. And so you ask yourself maybe something like, what do I need to know right now? Or what's going on in my life right now? Or maybe it is exploring something like grace, like I did with the first one, or anything that's going on for you or that you want to know about. And you write that intention actually on the canvas, and then you sign it. So it could be in the form of a question.
Right.
It could be in the form of a statement, you know, something, or it could be an affirmation, or even could be naming a fear, whatever it might be. So it doesn't really matter as long as it's personal to you. And from that, you start the intuitive process by choosing some colours that you're drawn to, and you just start playing around with the colours on the canvas. And you can use you can use, you know, you can spray water on it and create droopy effects, or you can layer that background or the invitation or the portal for as long as you want. But the other thing is not to get too attached to it. What happens is through this process is that even if you have feelings come up, whether they be happy or sad or fearful ones, you can actually, you know, write the word I am scared on the canvas in paint, and then you go over it in layers. And so, and that's basically how it starts. And then part of the journey is to do an inner meditation where you remember what your question or what you wanted to know was, and you ask for the answers. And basically it's done with a woman's image in mind or your face, because as women, we do get, programmed or influenced by media that we're not worthy, or that, we've got a lot of people, including myself, suffer from like a bad body image because of, you're supposed to look a certain way and this is about saying that however you come across, you're good enough. It's about getting to know your inner creative muse and not the critic which lives in your mind. So the exploration in paint is really free. It's about letting go of all the concepts that we get taught in society in a way, So you can start with an image. What does that image look like? And then how is it supported? What are the tools that I need? What are the medicines that I need? What are the what do you call it? Archetypes or symbols that support my quest, my journey, my question, my inquiry. So believe it or not, all of us have inside ourselves the answers to our own healing. As if you've spent any time with a good counselor or psychologist, they would encourage you to seek your own path with your own answers and your own knowledge. And this process that I'm talking about, and I think a lot of painting practices talk a lot about Carl Jung's approach or study. And he was even talking about that we can tap into the collective unconscious. And that's where the archetypes and the symbols come in, that even in dreams, we often, you can explore your dreams to find your own meaning into what your dream's been about through the use of symbols and archetypes. So it's sort of along those lines.
Yeah.
And that's what I find so powerful, that when you start on this process, once, say, you finish the painting and you hang it on your wall, it continues to inspire you. It continues to remind you. And so basically it's not an airy-fairy thing. It's actually really grounded.
Yes.
So, yeah. So that, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. I just feel that what you say touches my heart, and that's how you can really get deep into the art, and by a process of taking one step at a time, instead of just trying to copy somebody or copy a picture or just follow a set pattern. But that's okay too. But as long as we make art, so
that's right. Well, see, yeah, that's what the other thing is that it doesn't need to be like when I was talking about exploring the background. I mean, you could just draw random shapes and just happily play without any kind of thinking about it at all, just to follow your intuition, just to make marks on the canvas, and see what's creating, like, or what you're creating. And then you can leave it for a while when obviously you've got to go to sleep sometime. You can't paint for hours. But, you can go back to the canvas and think, well, what do I see in this? And you look for shapes. Like some of my paintings have ended up being, I can see an eye, or I can see it's looking like an animal, or it's looking like whatever it is. There's a shape that's already being suggested. Like I've had some amazing oh wow moments of creating that own synchronicity, that I've made an inquiry. And there's one painting in particular which was done in a black and white sort of study, which was about I forget what my inquiry was now, because I've got it written down somewhere, but when I did the inquiry and the inner sort of journey meditation, and I opened my eyes, the painting was already there. Like there was all these shapes of birds. It was actually how to be a courageous woman. It was about being your own inner warrior. That's right. And it was an inquiry about that. And she was already there, and so were these birds that were surrounding her. So for some reason, a lot of birds come into my paintings.
I love birds too.
Yeah, and there is a poem that I came across, and I've forgotten now who wrote it, but it was I think the title is something like when women were birds, or once we were birds. And that's, so I was introduced to this painting through to the poem, which was about women, through this painting process. And what's interesting is that in nature now, I think sometimes like wild birds guide you. You know, you could stay, like I had once, I was sitting outside on my veranda and I'm thinking all these woolly thoughts and going, and and I'm going, oh, and, you know, and you wouldn't believe it, but this little tiny bird sort of came out of nowhere and plopped, landed on the top of my head and then flew off. And actually what happened was it took all my woolly thoughts away with the bird.
Wow.
And I was able to kind of be real, like suddenly I was reminded, I'm here, I'm real, I'm alive right now. All these woolly thoughts that I was thinking I can't really do anything about right now, it's not helping me. And look around me, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
And I think that's what painting is too. It brings you, because we're so occupied all the time about solving problems or what's on our plate tomorrow or the next few hours or next week, or, you know, all the things that we have to do. But when you're engaged in a process like painting or even gardening or anything like that, something else takes over.
Yes.
And you become more present in the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is where you it comes from learning and having a deep spiritual practice where you learn to let go and be in the moment. And that's how I feel that I get my inspiration a lot, through my inner experiences and connections with nature, and especially nature, because it's like a cathedral outside, you know, quality of the beauty and magnificence of this life. So I feel that inspires me, and I'm sure that you get inspired by nature too, right?
Yeah, I am. I live on a small property, which is about 7 acres, but often I don't have enough, like that's the same thing, like we say, we don't have enough time, you know, we've got to get into our cars and go to our jobs or go to our study and all that sort of thing. So we kind of leave all these things till last. And I'm still embarking on my own journey of change. It's like never ending, actually.
Well,
so, but I am very fortunate at the moment to be able to come back to a very peaceful, quiet place, which is beautiful. Although when I look around, I always think, oh, I've got to mow the lawns, or I've got to weed that garden patch, or I should be planting more vegetables, or whatever. But one thing at a time, you know, it's all okay.
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah.
So could I ask you, though, what do you find the most difficult in art making?
I think, well, I was thinking about it. I had a short conversation with one of my sons, is that it's yourself. It's actually the things that you put in front of what you really want to do. You think, oh, well, I must do this first, or I haven't got time right now, or my studio's messy, I should clean it up, which I actually did the other day because it was extremely messy. But because I had sort of dumped all this stuff in there from a business that I had and that needed to go out of my studio. And so, and I'd been procrastinating. So it's about the procrastination, I think, for me. It's about, well, like I like to say, to get out of your own way. And I think to myself, when I'm in front of the canvas and I'm starting to paint, I think, why did I leave it for so long? You know, because we get attached to our own turmoils, I think. But the process itself, the painting process, no matter what way that you paint or what, you know, what practice that you do, is what will sort out some of the turmoil by osmosis.
Yeah.
You know, and so I actually want to have an affirmation for myself that I want to allow more creativity in my life, because when you let that creativity in and it sort of rests in you, you get all these other creative ideas about what to do about the certain problems or how to change your circumstances. You're no longer, and that's what I mean, we're all sort of like boxed. We put ourselves in little boxes. And so in one video that I created, which is about my art, and when I was putting all these pictures or my paintings, words came up for me, and one of them is actually like jump out of your box. Jump out of your own box. And thinking about like how many we put our own limitations on ourselves.
Yes.
It's about, and that's, you know, if we talk about being free, but we make ourselves our own prisoners sometimes.
Yes, yes.
So that's what I'm talking about. It's about being free, open to explore. Yeah.
I feel a lot of resistance, often feel a lot of resistance when I go in to make my art, but sometimes I feel like I really need to just push through, because then after a little while I feel good. And other times I just seem to not get through it. So then I go out for a walk, and that usually helps me to get more creative.
Yeah, well, one thing that comes to mind is when you're engaged in the painting process, you might have a particular destination in mind, or you might have an idea, but when you're doing this intuitively, it's like you could actually spend quite a long time in it's going nowhere, or where am I going with this, or it's looking like nothing, or this is a mess, or what's happening here? You know,
Right.
I don't know how to describe it. It's like, and that's part of, like, we all have our own doubts and our own, the inner critic and all that sort of thing. But the other thing that I'd like to mention is years ago I used to do a lot of skiing, like snow skiing. And I used to teach skiing. And with that, I had to learn how to teach other people to ski. And it was the clinicians that ran the class. And there was a brilliant couple that really inspired me. And they said it's like, it was actually about turning down a mountain, and how you had to actually kind of put, like, your skis are this way, but you had to throw your upper body across the tip of the skis to launch yourself down the mountain in order to continue your journey and to make these beautiful turns. Now, it was a moment of what they call delicious insecurity.
Mm.
And I love that phrase. It's like delicious insecurity. It's like the moment where you're standing on the edge of the cliff, about to launch yourself, and you're putting that one foot forward, and you think, can I? But it's that you need to do to, you know, to just, because you to explore yourself. It's like, it's all good to stay safe, and, you know, but that's very limiting. And knowing that with the skiing, because you did that movement, the skis had a way of like bending, and it would thrust you into the next turn. So you had to trust. So it's about trust.
Yes, about trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So true, so true.
I hope my explanations aren't too lengthy, but I don't know.
No, but what you just said is a really good advice, actually, to people that are afraid to try art, to try just be themselves, and maybe explore intuitive painting and whatever comes. And we have so many expectations of results that it freezes people, but children don't have that. So if we can learn to be more childlike, I think it's easier to accept the process and see where it's going.
Childlike. Yes, exactly. Like when it's so true. Like, you never worried about these things. You just went moment to moment exploring.
Yes.
And trying. And if you saw somebody on a swing and you never been on a swing before, you thought, well, I'm going to try that.
Right. But
you
as
know.
children, we would never hesitate. We want to go and try it immediately, right? So
Yeah, immediately, like,
yeah,
I want my turn, me.
right.
And then you get on that swing, and then someone, pushes for you, and then you learn to do it for yourself. But when you get up really high, there's that butterflies in your tummy. There's that moment of delicious insecurity,
Yes,
and it takes you back.
love it. I think I'm going to write that term down and put it on my uh, in my studio. Delicious insecurity. So, but can you also tell me what your favorite tools are? What kind of brushes do you like, and or
Well,
do you have any favorites?
favorite, like, art supplies?
Yes.
Oh, well, I usually just buy a finer sort of canvas, not the cheapest, but and I like to work quite large, because I find that when I'm doing really small work, it's very like almost tedious, and you get too like limited. So I like large space canvas. Sometimes I might even buy some wooden board from like a hardware shop,
Uh-huh.
and then you prime it, with white or black or whatever you want, and that's a really good surface to paint on as well. It feels kind of more natural in a way, and the paints that I use, are the ones that Shiloh really liked, but they're very expensive over here. So
No.
it's really basically any good quality acrylic
Mm-hmm. Acrylics,
that
yes.
grabs you, colours that grab you. It's not having the standard colours. It's like going, oh, I really like that aqua, or I think I will use some gold or whatever. But just to have quite a large sort of amount of colours. But the paints that I do like the most, because of their saturation of colour, is golden. That
Yes.
they're good, but they're expensive. Um, So in my last painting, I just got an acrylic from a place that actually makes their own paints, and they had this kind of really interesting blue that I've used in my last painting, but it's almost fluorescent kind of. So I'm playing around with that, thinking, oh, do I like it in my painting? But it's actually very interesting. It's actually exciting. So it's good. The brushes, I use anything from a really fine, my favourite brushes are for the fine detail work, which are the long sort of lining brushes.
Uh-huh.
And for that, I would spend a bit more money on. But other than that, those really cheap hog hair brushes that are just the plain wooden handles, because I use a lot of scratchy, scrubby movements, and they kind of wear down really quick. And so I have any brushes. Some are expensive, some of the cheapest that you can get.
Right.
The other thing that's nice is using something as a stencil. Like I used I cut a potato and started putting stamps all over this thing, or anything, using some interesting surface and, painting it and placing it on the canvas. So it's just whatever you think of, really. And sometimes I use my fingers,
Yes. You can really feel the paint with that.
Yeah.
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 So, okay. I wanted to know a little bit about your art program to the Curious Woman workshops that you have currently going on, and it's more of a local there in Australia where you are. Can you tell me exactly what town or where this is located, the Women's Center?
Well,
Australian viewers.
well, at the moment, I haven't advertised to do any locally. I'm actually building that up. I've collected a list of names. I've held a few workshops with women.
Okay.
But one idea was to call it the Curious Woman Workshops, but I'm sort of a person that sometimes can't make up their mind. Like, what should I call this thing?
I like that.
And so I'm constantly sort of changing and evolving things. But what my direction is at the moment is that I'm wanting to do some workshops locally. Like I did a small exploration workshop for International Women's Day, and kind of created a ceremony to welcome all the women into a circle, and then some did other activities and some joined me, and that was just a real honor and privilege to do that, and it sort of made a whole difference to the sequence of events. So I'm sort of starting to get out into the community more, and the other thing is that I want to start performing workshops to help women that have suffered from trauma and abuse, because this painting method is a way to get back in touch with yourself, to explore what happened to you and to move on from there. So when you're kind of ready to think, well, okay, I used to be like this, but these circumstances have weighed me down. How do I get over this? And basically that's what happened to me. So I'm studying at like a school at the moment, my diploma of community service, where we're actually doing subjects like domestic violence and counselling and things like that. And I want to attach my painting exploration and workshops to that as something to offer. And also I needed to know about like ethical boundaries, I guess. Like I can be very passionate and want to do things, but the person that I'm working with may not be ready for that, you know. So it's about allowing space and all of that. So I've got different ideas and I'm still sort of tossing them around, but definitely I'm trying to plan some online exploration classes where you could, you know, get onto my videos, but I just haven't quite done that yet.
One thing at a time.
Yeah,
I feel that you're going to help a lot of women through your art, because it touches a very deep space inside, and that can help women who don't know how to find themselves or how to really be in touch with their true feelings. So, but if some newbie painter came to ask you where to start, what would your simplest advice be for people that want to try this intuitive style of painting?
Well, I think, well, they could get in touch with me through my Facebook page or my email at the moment, and I'll work on getting my website back up and running, and then we can discuss what their needs are or what they want to know, and yeah, I'm not quite sure where to take it, because at the moment, like, I've got that video, which I've got two versions of it. One of it was for an exercise in my classroom. We had to pretend that we were working for an organisation and to introduce a new service. And so that's why I did that one, like, I'm working for the Women's Centre, but which I'm not. But I'm projecting or envisaging that I will be. Right. So it was a really good exercise. And when I showed that video in the class, it was wow, because I'd seen it so often that I'd forgotten. Yes. What it was like, and actually some people had to leave the room because it touched them. Yes. That much, and it struck a chord. And that's what I find with this painting, is that they also kind of heal other people. I've had people stand in front of my paintings and actually cry because they've seen something there. And so I think it's a simple step to start, but you just need a little bit of guidance, and I'm here to support that, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a wonderful venue, and I'm gonna link your Facebook page where they can contact you, and you post so many wonderful art pictures for people to catch inspiration on your page. And also I will post a link after this video to that video that you made, because it is a really beautiful video. So people can get in touch with you. But I really appreciate you coming and talking with us here today, and to all our listeners, that we may be inspired you today too. That's the whole reason for doing this interview anyway. So, and so I thank you very much.
Yeah, to be inspired.
Yeah, to be inspired.
And bring that from your inside to the outside. Yeah.
I just love talking with other artists, because I always learn something from everyone. But I thank you so much for participating, and I will see you online. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.